and welcome to a new episode of the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. I am your host, Jim Cousins, along with the rest of the HCAM team, and co-hosting with me this first half hour will be Bob, right? I asked you, Bob, right?
That's right, Jim.
All
I'm
right.
here. And I
Thank you.
see Karen's here with us as well.
Yes, our
Welcome,
special
Karen.
guest this half hour is Karen Cooprider, and we're going to be talking about the art of neighboring. Did I get that right, Karen?
I guess so. Yeah.
Well,
How are you?
welcome to our show.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm really curious before we actually talk about that, let's get a little bit of history on you for those who may not know you.
All
Tell us a
right.
little bit about you.
Sure. Um, I'm Karen. I'm married to my husband for 31 years, Kurt. We lived in Hopkinton for 23 of those years, so we've pretty much longtime residents, not townies, but longtime residents. We have four daughters. They're all in their 20s. All grew up here in Hopkinton, gone to Hopkinton High School. The oldest is married and has two kids, so we're grandparents to two young a girl and a boy, and two of them work, and the youngest is a grad student at BC. Um, I don't know my background actually, education wise. I went to MIT and studied aerospace engineering.
Which means you're a rocket
Yeah,
scientist.
yeah. So if you need one of those, right? If something's confusing, it doesn't take rocket science. If you do need a rocket scientist, we have one in the house. But I haven't done engineering in years. Um, Stayed at home, raised my kids, did some other odds and ends home businesses. Most recently, I was about 8 years. I was the youth director at Faith Community Church in Hopkinton. Last couple of years, I've been at home, kind of doing little things here and there. One thing being that it seems interesting to me that neighboring has been a passion of mine, and I've been kind of reading a lot of books in that area and put together a curriculum for groups at our church and done some of that. So hence, I think it's interesting with the COVID situation that it's kind of surfaced at the top of people's awareness, and so it's relevant to today.
Yes, absolutely. Now, are any of your kids home with you now, or are they out sheltering home?
Yeah, so today two of them are here, and our youngest lives with us. She's commuting. Well, I guess she's virtual now, but she was commuting to BC. Um, and then my second daughter, she and her fiance are living here for a couple weeks. They've been going back and forth between his parents' house and our house. So
I
right now we have three 20 somethings with us.
see. Yes, yeah, yeah. All three of our kids are at home right now
Oh,
too.
you have them all. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
We also have my parents. We just put an addition on. We have an in-law apartment, and so my parents live here too, which is those are our closest neighbors.
Wow, that's a full house.
Yeah, we don't interact too much with them, especially with COVID. We
Yep.
help with shopping, and we visit maybe once a day just through the door, but or out on the front porch if it's a nice day.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a nice day today. I didn't expect that.
Mm. So now I actually don't know about this, but are there any of the businesses that you've dabbled in the past that you can talk about? I'm interested to see what would interest you.
What would interest me?
Yeah, like what had interested you? What businesses were you working on when you were doing some businesses?
Yeah, I believe it or not, for about 10 years I was a creative memories consultant.
Oh,
Um,
we love creative memories.
yeah, I know.
That's
I
so great.
Yeah. So I haven't worked on a photo album in years, but used to help people put together photo albums and teach classes on that. That was um,
How come you haven't worked on a photo album in years?
well, because once I went digital, I have them all on the computer, and if I do a photo album at all, it tends to be a Shutterfly book or something like that.
Okay, but that
So
counts, Karen. That
it's
totally counts.
done like three of those. So
Okay, yeah, Linda's transitioned to that too, and
I see really.
yeah, I think she's doing Mixbook now. Mixbook, I think is the
Oh,
name of it.
yeah, I don't know what
Um,
that is.
yeah, I'm not sure. It's one of those websites designed specifically for doing that. But
Yeah.
those those are great because they're fun to work on, and then you have like a real printed book.
Well, I have said actually, I'm trying to just get caught up on some of the things that I'm doing right now. But if this continues where I'm not working or whatnot, then I do want to sit and maybe do a book a year on Shutterfly. Since I have all the pictures gathered by year on my computer, if I just pick the best ones, throw it into Shutterfly, and create a book, then I can have, and then I can print multiple copies for each of my daughters. I thought
Yep.
that would be a project that I could see myself doing, but I haven't yet gotten to.
Yep.
In fact, there are some other things that I've done. Um, I did work at a cafe. I worked at Bittersweet for about a year. So I worked in a coffee shop, which was a load of fun. I love seeing the people in town. I love them coming in and out. Um, I did catch your show yesterday, and I have Cooprider Family Recipes. I did that last year.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, so I was listening. They're not gluten free though, and I know people who would probably pay for your book.
Now, what I'm interested in is what did you make your book in? Did you use Microsoft Word or Publisher or some other kind of program?
I think I ended up doing it in Microsoft Word.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you do yours in?
Um, Google Docs.
Straight up, it's less formatting ability in Google Docs. I can make it prettier in Word.
Well, you think so?
I don't know. I'm just more proficient.
Because you know what? I wasn't gonna do this, but now you're making me do this.
What are you gonna do?
What I've done so far is I started, as I said, she's got a whole bunch of recipes, and I started with the table of contents.
Yep.
So I'm going to share my screen so you can see what my table of contents
All
looks
right.
like.
All right. All right.
All right, here. Okay. Now, so this is it right here.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And like as I was mentioning, we kind of have it chopped up into these different things. And then we have Rachel's special recipes,
Yeah.
and then the specials that we have. And then what I'm doing is this one here I didn't do yet, but this was my first test one. And what I like about this is what we always say is get out all the ingredients. So I put all the ingredients first, and then I put the measurements after, because I think it
Sure.
makes it easier to just go down the list.
I like that. Yeah.
And
Well,
then,
yours is formatted beautifully. I like it.
well, thank you. Thank you. It's, you know what? That for me, that is my fun. I like playing around with that. So now I got like 60 pages of that to kind of go through and get everything standardized.
Oh, nice.
All
Nice.
right. Now we're ready for the main event, Karen.
All
'Cause
right.
I'll be honest with you. Going to Faith Community with you was really exciting because you were always so involved in the life of the church. And you always have been very interested in how other people are doing and in connecting with them and in growing with them. So when I was referred to you for the art of neighboring, I don't know where that came from, but that sounds exactly like you.
You think
So
so? You think
yeah,
so?
I do. I do. So I would like to start off, if you wouldn't mind, by defining and describing, like, what is the concept of the art of neighboring?
Sure. Um, back when we first moved in, one of the things that my husband and I did was we said, well, we should get to know our neighbors, or at least who lives around us. So we right out the gate, the first year we lived here, we just sent out flyers with our kids. We distributed them. They were little kids at the time, but we invited everybody for a block party, and we had a big cookout. Everybody brought their own meat to grill and something to share, and made it real low maintenance. Um, and the police and fire. I don't know if we did this right away, but eventually we would invite them, and they would bring a fire truck or a police car or both, and they'd lead the kids in a bike parade and strollers just around the little block that we live on, and um, so it was just kind of natural for us to at least connect people, whether we knew everybody or not. At least that people could visit and get to know their neighbors a little bit. But neighboring, we talk about the art of neighboring, and neighboring is a verb in the way that I'm using it, but it really simply means being a good neighbor, and um, like and that would be maybe caring for the people around us and allowing them to care for you, reciprocal giving and receiving of good neighboring. It means having real conversations with and getting to know the people that are right around you, right, that live right around us. Literally learning someone's name, listening to someone's story, um, giving help or receiving help. Just basically doing life with people without an agenda, with a business or religious or political or otherwise agenda. Just um, getting to know and living life with people. Um, and so it's always been something I've been interested in. As you said, even, I mean, I'm just a relational person. And I'm not necessarily, it's funny, I know all the names of the people that I live around, which not a lot of people do actually. They don't often know the names of the people they live around. And I know some of the stories, but especially when I was working at probably more than full time at the church, I was less connected to my neighbors because we get busy, and that's kind of the way we as a world operate. We tend to get busy and lose touch with people. Um, but since I quit my job, I've been reading a lot, and even actually before then, and I read this book called The Art of Neighboring. It looks like this,
Mhm.
and in the book, the mayor of Arvada, Colorado, is meeting with a group of 20 pastors. And one of the things he says that I thought was really wise was he said that the majority of the issues that our community face would be eliminated if, or drastically reduced, if people could just figure out a way to become a community of good neighbors.
Hmm.
And he even talks about, like, and I think this is true, that when we have a major crisis or a major situation going on, the first responders are truly our neighbors. If there's an issue and somebody needs help or somebody needs checking on, um, the relationships that we have with our neighbors are critical, and that actually becomes a first responder situation. Um, but he was speaking to, like I said, a group of Christian pastors, a group of them. And what's interesting in the book is when they heard his words, they immediately thought of that they'd just gotten schooled in their own religion, because when Jesus was asked what the greatest commandment was, his reply was, love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm.
Like, he simplified everything. So if you're looking at it from a Christian perspective, Jesus told us the magic formula was to love God and love your neighbors. And they started to ask one another, what if that was literal? What if he literally meant the people that live in the 8 houses around us, and we start there and love our neighbors literally? um, what would that look like? What would happen if everybody did that in our community? And they took this great commandment literally, and and so they went with that, and that's what the idea of that book, which struck me because it was right in line with the way I was thinking. Because, like I said, people get busy, but also people get driven by media and fear, and so people begin, our culture, even before coronavirus, was a culture of isolation or loneliness. People, you picture, especially in suburbia where we live in Hopkinton, people come home from work at the end of the day, and you push the button so the garage goes up, drive in, shut the garage, go inside, peace and quiet. If you see something, try to go out and get your mail when nobody's out there, because if somebody's out there, you might have to talk to them. You know, there's this idea of loneliness and isolation, which is elevated because we're ordered to stay home now in
Mhm.
this COVID crisis. Um, so I think that one of the worthiest endeavors we could go after is to be good neighbors, um, in this time, especially. Really take this seriously and learn to be in relationship with the people around us. If you're like me and you're at home pretty much 99% of the time right now, when I look out any window, the people I see, or the homes I see, are the closest neighbors, the people that I'm going to probably interact outside my family in my house. Those are the people that I have the opportunity to know. And so I think we're in a unique opportunity, um, if we take advantage of getting to know our neighbors right now in this time, the person next door, the person across the street. Um, the person across the counter if you go into a grocery store or take out food or something. Um, so it was interesting though because we engage in physical distancing practices right now, and I think there's one important thing to note a difference between is social distancing and social isolation, because isolation and loneliness are things that negatively impact our whole well-being, mentally, physically. Um, we have far fewer face-to-face interactions right now, um, and yet at the same time, I know in my neighborhood there are way more people out walking the neighborhood than ever before, and so there's actually opportunity here, I think, to build connections with people who live near us that can make a big difference in our lives, in their lives, and actually in the town of Hopkinton and in our community. Um, the key, of course, is learning to do that from 6 to 10 feet away. But
Right. Yeah, and this is obviously an unprecedented situation that we're in, and I assume that the book that you read and the um, thoughts that you're having about it predate this worldwide pandemic. So,
absolutely.
yeah, so that's interesting. And Bob, I'll be interested in your opinion on this too, because I've always felt that the world is becoming faster and busier. And as technology grows and becomes more convenient, that we carry the whole world in our pocket on the internet, we're so much more connected, but we're always on. I look back to when I was a kid, and I hate to sound like, an old man, but it just seemed like a much simpler time than today's world. And when I say that, I only mean in terms of the amount of busyness, the amount of demands that are happening on us. And it just feels to me like people in today's world are less connected because they're so much busier within their own worlds. Bob, what are you thinking?
Well, I think this is for me. I'm sitting here looking at a 14-inch screen, talking to three people, and I'm oblivious to what's happening around me or what's outside me. I think that's a kind of a small microcosm of what's really going on. It's hard to feel connected to the world when you're sitting in a cubicle looking at it on a monitor. If you're out, like a lot of people do, and a good idea is to get out on the trails, walk, and feel nature and feel the vastness that's out there. It makes you feel a lot more like a part of the universe rather than trying to dive into the computer. And that's where my life is. So I think that's true, that's what's happening. And I'd be interested, Karen, if you, I don't know where you live in town, but when you use the idea of connecting with your neighbors, obviously the whole town are our neighbors, but you've been in the same location for a number of years. Have you seen your neighbors come and go? Has it made it more difficult to maintain that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. The For sure, there's been turnover in our neighborhood where probably 50% of the houses have different people living in them now than 23 years ago. And so, um, and in the middle of our time here, probably for about 10 years, we didn't do these neighborhood block parties, which can have up to a couple hundred people. But um, the and so recently, in the last 5 years, when we started them up again, it's a whole new group of people that is coming, which is really fun to watch if you just step back and kind of watch what's going on as people visit and hang out and children play and kids get to know each other as well that way. But yeah, it's the other thing that's interesting though is that the people that you don't know well that you've lived next to and they've lived here for 20 years as well, those are actually the ones that are harder because there's an embarrassment or an awkward feeling when you go to somebody and say, "So I know we live next to each other for 20 years, but I don't know your name." And I'm embarrassed to say that. And so sometimes that's an obstacle for people to want to get to know people. But what's funny is I've been helping people lead classes on this topic over the past year and a half. And every to a person, everybody says that right now it's way easier to talk to a neighbor than it's ever been. There's no awkwardness because it doesn't matter if you knew them before, if you meet them for the first time, if you see somebody and you're taking a walk and they're passing you on the street or whatever, everybody welcomes a gentle hello, introduction, how are you doing? Is your family doing okay in this? Everybody healthy? And you can quickly go deeper and understand a little bit more about their story and your story in this time, because there's a connection that's easy to make right now. And so that's a helpful thing right now, to get to know people and leverage that to know our neighbors and look after their needs.
Did you
Hmm.
find that one of the or one of the easier ways to get connected with your neighbors? You mentioned that you didn't do your block parties for the first 10 years you were here. Was it the fact that you had children that were mixing among the neighborhood children that caused to be more of a family environment?
Yeah, when we had our kids, and they were younger, it was, um, you notice that even now, it's easy for the families that have kids. They're the ones that want to come to the party because the kids want to play. They want to go around the bike parade. They want to play with their friends.
Right.
We knew our neighbors better when our kids were in the neighborhood or when our kids were in school. Um, and then there was the gap in between where Kurt and myself, we were just working, and we didn't have kids around, and so we did it less. We've gone back to it, especially now that I'm home. But yeah, and having a conversation like this for our listeners as they're listening to and watching today, um, just talking about this topic changes then how you see people, and the opportunities that you see are before you. Some people get a little stressed going through a class like this or talking about this topic because they think, I don't have time for this. I can't add one more thing to my already busy calendar. When I get home from work, I don't want to get into a conversation or have to have a friend over for dinner, a neighbor over for dinner. I don't want to do any. And what I tell people is, this isn't a adding to your to-do list thing. It does require somewhat of a willingness to be interruptible or a little bit flexible. But really, by having this conversation, what just happened in each of you guys and anybody who's listening is your eyes just opened to possibilities that you encounter on a daily basis as you go about your normal business. So as you interact with people, you might think, I know what Karen was talking about. I should say hi to that person right now and ask them how they're doing. I know that's what I should do right now, because and before you would have thought something different, like, I'm going to quick turn around and go down the other aisle in the grocery store so I don't have to talk to that person. But neighboring is all about making connection, and it might require a 5 minutes of your time to have that conversation, but it's not adding things to your calendar necessarily. It's encountering and engaging the opportunities that present themselves as you go about your daily life that I think are fairly easy to do. We just don't tend to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think also too that that's a really important point that you mentioned about doing something small, and you're just thinking about this and you're going, because when Bob was speaking about going outdoors and kind of feeling connected to the world, you know, I didn't realize how much I was lacking that. I'll take my dog out to relieve himself one more time, and it's 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and all the stars are out, and I'm listening to the wind in the trees, and just those few moments are enough to make me think, wow, I don't really have enough of this in my life. So just getting a taste of it is enough to really spark a desire for it.
Right. And it doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, the simple first step, and what this in particular this book talks about, you can't love somebody when we're told to love our neighbors or just befriend the people around us. And first of all, not everybody's going to want to be your friend or want or engage, and that's fine. It is just a few connections that are around you anyway. But you can't do any of this if you don't know somebody's name. And so the basic first step in any of these situations, whenever you meet somebody, um, is to introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Karen. What's your name? A simple question, because suddenly that creates connection, because our name is personal, right? But but then beyond that, things that people can do, really simple, like you said, Jim. They don't have to be complex and earth shattering, but you could reach out to somebody with an email or a phone call, or you could, when you see somebody outside, like I said before, make a point to talk to them or ask somebody how they're doing, especially during the crisis. Um, you could, and I know Jim, your old neighborhood does a great job at this whole neighboring thing. The one up by Stewart and up there,
Yep.
Jamie Lane. But they, you can create a neighborhood directory so that when there is a need or there is an opportunity or there is an invitation, then people can communicate with one another. Um, right now, you could host virtual connections with your neighbors, or you could sit outside in the front yard in a big circle with some chairs and have drinks in the afternoon or whatever and visit with one another in somebody's yard. Clearly, everybody's going on social distancing walks or um, a virtual trivia night or game night of sorts. But one of the biggest things that I think is important in neighboring for everybody to consider is to take care of those who are vulnerable or need help in life, not just today, but in life. It's good to know who are the elderly people, who are the disabled, or the sick, or who are the single parents that might need a little assistance because they're home with kids by themselves. Um, today, who are the people who are first responders who are out working all the time and might need help at their house? But for all of those people, to know their names, to know their story a little bit and introduce yourself and check in regularly, to offer them help, with the elderly, somebody who's older in your neighborhood, to help them connect on Zoom so that they can talk to their family or whatever. But certainly errands, if you're running to the grocery store, I'm going to the grocery store, can I pick anything up for you? Just simple little things that I think I know growing up, if my mother was baking and she needed eggs, she didn't go to the grocery store. She talked to her next door neighbor first. Or if we were going to play out, if they needed to run somewhere, they just, we're going out tonight. Can you keep an eye on the kids? The kids have your phone number, whatever. It was just this, that was who you did life with. And we've gotten away from that as a society, as a culture. And I think that going back to that would be hugely positive. Um, so that's just what I get excited about.
Sure. I agree with that. In fact, our street now, we have an email chain where when somebody sees the fox in their backyard, they'll like send out a little picture of it and stuff like that. So that's always really, really nice. One quick question I'm thinking about, Karen, are you a native New Englander?
Yes. Yep. I was born in Connecticut, New Britain. I lived there until I was 6, and then I moved to Sturbridge, where I grew up.
Oh, well, that's even more impressive for you to be this, because New Englanders are usually so much more reserved than that.
Right.
So we only have a couple of minutes left, and I think that it's really valuable hearing what you're saying, because I think it's will spark and connect with people and give them a real opportunity to do some of these things. You had some real concrete examples, way to overcome awkwardness and just introduce yourself with your name, and see people in the supermarket from a safe distance. Think about people who are first responders. Think about people who may have needs. Those are all really good jumping off points. So in this last minute or so, is there anything else that you can tell us? Maybe an anecdote about something that worked really well for you, or an exciting experience that you had, or any other tips or advice you would give us?
Yeah, a couple things the simplest thing that my husband and I did was we moved 2 Adirondack chairs from the backyard to the front yard. And we did this a year and a half ago. So especially when it's nice out, to go sit out in the evening with a beer or whatever, and people walk by, and even if they don't come up from the street, they'll have a conversation with you from the street. And the same goes if you move a grill. We moved our bonfire pit when coronavirus hit. We moved our bonfire pit to the front yard, and we have bonfires at night. And again, the same thing happens. People not only stop in the street and chat with us, but sometimes they'll come and bring a chair and sit around the fire with us. And they're just neighbors who live right around us. So those kind of things are fun. The other thing that I think of that um, it's another way to get to know, if you learn people's names, you could draw like a tic-tac-toe board and put the names of the houses of the people that live in those houses. Writing them down is, I think, like anything, it helps you remember it. And if you visually see it, next time you see somebody, you might remember their names.
Hmm.
So we call it a block map, just kind of who lives near me, what are their names, maybe a little bit about the details that you're learning as you go, the schools the kids are going to, different where they go to work or things like that. Um, but from that map too, whether I'm walking or just using that map, um, I like to go around if I'm not interacting with people and just pray for people.
Mm-hmm.
Just pray for people and what's going on in their houses and situations, whether I know the situations or not. But I think that connects you to people as well. So
That is great. That is great. Hey, thank you so much for coming on our show, and I hope that you come back and give us some more thoughts and insights on that.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you're awesome. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, and we are going to transition now to our second half hour of the Hopkinton Hangout Hour, where we'll be welcoming our other co-host, Matt Clark. Matt, welcome.
Hello. Hi.
And
Thanks for
today
having me.
we are bringing back Chris and David, who were on. Um, I don't know how long ago. I think it was last week. I lose track of all time now.
I think it was 2 weeks
Talking
ago,
about
but you're
tech,
right.
and they're back to talk more tech with us. And they are now
Back.
in the meeting. Hey, Chris,
Hello.
welcome.
I'm here.
Hi, David.
Hey.
All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for coming back on the Hangout Hour. It was a lot of fun last time.
Oh, thanks for having me. You know, it really looks like you're in the studio right now.
That's the goal. That's the goal. If I can't be there, at least I can look like I'm there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I was excited to hear about the first of your topics that you were interested in talking about, because I think it's really, really interesting. Basically, it is how small is our technology going to go, right? And you described it in a nutshell. Our laptops going to replace desktops, our tablets going to replace laptops, and our phones going to replace tablets. I find that really interesting because I am really not a phone person. It was a revolution for me when I moved from a desktop to a laptop, and now I can take my whole world with me and just this little tiny thing anywhere I go, and it's awesome. And my wife, boy, she does everything on her phone, Word documents and PDFs and
Word
just like
documents.
everything.
That's something.
I know.
That is certainly something. I could not do that.
She's got like 1,000 apps on her phone. I have 5 that I use, maybe.
But you do have a smartphone.
Yes, I do. But
Okay.
boy, and you know what? I was resisting that, quite honestly, because I don't want to get caught up in that life of always being on my phone all the time. But for no other reason, to have my email with me wherever I am is such a bonus. All right. Anyways, that was just me introducing, because I'm so excited about this topic. What are you thinking?
David, why don't you go first, since this was your idea to talk about this?
All right. Okay.
Oh, where do I start?
Chris and I, we've discussed this before. I'm excited to hear Chris's stance, because we purposely didn't talk about the topic beforehand, so that we wouldn't know, but we've talked about it in the past before. And my stance on it has been that I think laptops will replace desktops, and you'll just have your laptop, and when you need to use it at a desk, you can put it at a desk and you plug it into your base station or your hub, your USB hub, and then it goes out to your monitors, your keyboard, mouse, peripherals, all that. And then there's no need for a desktop. Now, this is what's interesting. This is kind of already happening at a lot of places, like where I was co-oping at or interning at. This is what we did. Everyone had a laptop. Nobody had desktops, even for like the more 3D graphics intense engineers. They use laptops, just more powerful laptops. But everyone had a laptop, and you just put it on your desk, plug it into. Everyone had dual monitors, plug it into your hub, and it connects you to all your peripherals. And then it's much easier for, say, IT to work on, because you can just swap them out really easy. And it's great for all the workers to be able to take their laptops home that they work on. So all their local files are still there. And you can bring it with you around the office and whatnot. I noticed at the high school, Hopkinton High School, when we used to go there, they started to do this. I believe like all the administrators and all the teachers, right? They have laptops, whereas the administrators used to have desktops in the office. Now they just have MacBooks that they plug into their monitors, and then eventually, I think once laptops get more powerful enough, and stuff can shrink even more, so that way it's less heat, less power, that sort of thing. Desktops will be gone forever from the home user or business user, and then eventually, when it becomes even smaller, which I think will take new technologies more than just silicon transistors to do this, but phones then replacing laptops, or the same type of thing where you have your phone, you carry that in your pocket, on the go wherever you go, and then when you need to have like a sit down workstation, you plug it into a base station or a hub, and it connects to all your peripherals. Or who was it? Razer? Chris, do you remember who it was?
Yeah, I don't know. You sort of have to say it first.
It was some company that came out like in CES. They showed off a laptop where the trackpad was just an empty square,
Asus.
and you could Asus. Okay,
I think.
and
yeah, no, they had
anyways,
the screen on the trackpad. It might have been Razer.
Well, no, it was one where you had your phone, your phone, your smartphone, and then that had the core and the memory and the storage, and then when you want to use your laptop, you put your phone into your laptop.
Yeah, that was Razer.
Okay, yeah, the Razer phone. So that's my stance currently.
All right. Wow, that's a lot. I have a couple thoughts on that. Chris, what are you thinking?
I'm coming to you live from sitting right next to my desktop computer.
Okay.
I love using my desktop computer. But I don't disagree with David that it will switch to laptops. I just think that for different reasons. I do not foresee a future where the laptops become so powerful that they can replace everything that a desktop can do, because desktops are always going to be more powerful. They're always going to have the potential to be more powerful because they have better thermal designs, and they can just take up more space. And I guess my first point would be, take gaming, for example. We're still at the point where, sure, laptops are pretty good, but games are still progressing at quite a rate where laptops can't exactly handle it as well as a desktop could. So to get back to my original point, I do think that laptops will replace desktops, not because they'll get more powerful, but because the laptops will essentially become thin clients, and they will just stream all of their productivity or gaming applications from some server at Google in Arizona or something. And in that way, you don't have to have anything on the laptop. It's just a screen and a keyboard, and then you can just stream it everywhere. And I foresee that happening before laptops becoming more powerful to replace basically everything that you could want to do on a desktop. Because we're already seeing that with things like Google Stadia, game streaming services, which I have other thoughts about. Maybe we can talk about that too. But that's my stance, and I could see that happening with phones too, where phones become the new laptops, and you just plug it into a keyboard.
Yeah.
But it's not because they themselves will get really powerful. It's because they'll stream it.
Yeah, I forgot. I didn't even mention the tablet. How that fits.
No, we just skipped right over that. Okay, it'll go from laptop to phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the most revolutionary thing for me was when I went from desktop programs to an online platform, which basically, if you're thinking Microsoft Word to Google Docs, that type of thing. And all of a sudden, I can log into Chrome on any machine anywhere and have all of my world right there to me. That was really revolutionary because, number one, I was no longer paranoid about having my computer die and taking my entire life with it. And number two, I'm not specifically tied to one machine. It's just however I access my stuff. So that was really unlinking those two things was really, really awesome for me because now, hey, if my laptop falls and shatters, I other than having to pay for it, I don't even care because I haven't lost anything. But the big thing that this is what I can't understand, and I'll jump to the end game. My daughter watches movies on her phone, and I don't understand that. See, my situation is I have a 13-inch laptop, and I have a whatever size screen on my desktop. I can fit so much more stuff on there without it being too small that I can't work with it. Now, when I go on my wife's laptop, she has the same unit that I have in the 15-inch version. Every time I do that, I'm like, wow, it's like the whole page of the document is on there, and it's big enough that it looks good. So I think the screen size, and David, when you talk about docking and plugging into all your peripherals and stuff, I just think that a big screen, especially as people get older, cannot be replaced by anything smaller. I do think that looking at Stadia and other things like that, I think desktops will always be more powerful. And it's interesting for me to watch because I always wonder, when is it going to be enough? Whenever they increase the capabilities of a desktop, they just increase the size of the programs that are running on it and the resources that it needs. When will there be a time when they say this is the max amount of power that we need to run this thing, and we can get it down shrunken into a laptop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that. I see VR as being a big barrier to that because you need to power two screens at high resolution and high refresh rates.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're just
Well,
coming up with new ways to keep pushing the boundaries of what we can
Yeah.
do.
Have you guys done
VR
that?
is different.
Have you used an Oculus or any other kind of VR?
No. Oh, yes, I
Uh,
have. I used an HTC Vive. Oh, it was crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Some friends of
Yeah.
ours have like the first generation Oculus. They bought it when it first came out. I think it's the Oculus or something like that. And I'll tell you, it's really impressive. You get
Yeah.
vertigo. You're looking around. It's really cool. It's not photorealistic, but for many things, what do you even care about photorealistic for?
Right.
You kind of like you give up that, and you're in a virtual world. So I think that has real potential. But if they can shrink that down so it just fits on your face,
Oh, that'd be great.
and then you can carry that around. That if there's a way to, and I don't know if there is one, I haven't seen this. If there's a way to run your machine like you normally would just in your VR helmet, doing your word processing and doing your photoshopping, just all in that, all of a sudden you don't need any kind of screen at all. You just
Yeah.
need an interface, either whether it be a keyboard or a mouse or something new.
Yeah.
Which
I mean,
they're trying to do, I suppose, when you have like Samsung and Google making those headsets for their phones, but I wouldn't call that real VR because that's just
Right.
not
Yeah.
nearly powerful enough to give you the same experience as an Oculus or HTC Vive.
Yeah.
But I think eventually it will get there.
And what do you think about, as they're inventing this stuff, some of the applications you've seen, such as, oh, you wear these glasses and you can still see your room around you, but there's a Picasso on the wall instead, and there's a vase of flowers on the coffee table. You know, have you seen those things where it's just, oh, we just kind of add, oh, and here's one
Yeah.
where you can add animals to your Zoom meetings. So you're in a Zoom meeting and a tiger walks behind you, and it seems kind of like
Yeah.
fluff to me. I
I
don't
think
know.
that's really cool, but I'm also a little tepid on it because it's like everything is going to be virtual and there's going to be nothing real. Pretty soon, all you're going to need is to live in a completely blank house, and then you can just populate it with virtual furniture.
And then
Yeah,
brain in a box. That's all we need to be.
exactly.
Just put
Well,
our
I mean,
brain in a
then
box.
we won't even need that. That was the other point I was going to make. I think that it's possible that we'll come up with a better communications protocol between humans and computers before desktops or before laptops become powerful enough to replace desktops. To the point where we can just think and then we're doing something with the computer.
I just saw something about that the other day.
brain computer interface, the one last barrier.
There was a study. I don't know if anybody's seen this. Just within the last week, I can't remember exactly. They had a machine that was scanning somebody's brain and putting down in words what the person was thinking, and it was reasonably accurate.
Yeah, they've done a lot of research on this for the past decade or so. Like MIT Media Lab, they do a bunch on this. Neuralink, one of part Elon Musk company, though he's not involved with it anymore. But Neuralink has developed something really cool. It's like it's a brain computer interface, and they a couple months ago or last year, I believe, they did a conference where they showed off their recent machine that in an open brain surgery, the machine very precisely injected electrical nodes into the brain at very specific spots so that you can record the impulses or the action potentials of your brain, right? So then you can, if you have thousands of these wired to your brain, then it becomes much better to communicate between your brain and your thoughts directly to the computer without having to go through a keyboard and mouse.
That's what I want.
So it's getting there.
Brain.
It's getting there.
Matt.
Sign me up.
That's incredibly fascinating. I've seen stuff like that in a lot of places. One of the things I have to think though is if that works the same for everyone, because when I learned recently that not everyone has the same like thought process as everyone else, and what I exactly mean by that is when I'm thinking in my head, my words are as clear as if I said them out loud. But I've learned recently that not everyone has that same internal monologue that I do, which is incredibly fascinating and hard to imagine for someone who has an internal monologue. So I'm super interested in how something like that would work for everyone.
Yeah. And imagine like some people have psychoses and some people have other things like that might really change how you interface.
Yeah, I never thought about that. That's good. That's a good point.
I was reading or heard once when Google was first starting and they were developing their AI, they were talking about the difference between them and Apple, which had made Siri and was kind of going along that route. And their vision was that their AI would be like you would see in Star Trek, where it's not really in your face, it's just like part of the environment. And so when you want something, the AI is either observing the environment and knows what you want, or you just speak to it naturally and it just happens to be there.
Amazon Echo, anybody?
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I can't understand is why do we not have a system? And maybe Echo does this, I don't know. But where I can just be in any room of my house, answer the phone, talking to the air like they do on Star Trek, and then just keep going on about my life wherever I go. It's like I have to go to an appliance.
Oh, I think they're trying to do that. They made the Echo Dot. It's really cheap, and the people give those things out like hot towels at restaurants. We have a few of them because you go to an event and they're like, oh, here's a little party favor, here's an Amazon Echo. So they have a feature where you can communicate between them like a intercom system in the house.
Oh,
so
okay.
I think that's what they're trying to do, because you need a microphone in every room.
Right, and a microphone and a speaker in every room. Yeah, and there must be quality issues too.
I want to go back to Google Stadia for a second. And other streaming services, because I am somebody who likes to own my media. I like to own the music that I have, and I like having physical copies of video games instead of having them in a digital library. But it seems like Spotify, Netflix, Kindle, Steam, streaming, it's the future, and I don't know how I feel about that.
I do. I hate it. I'm the same way. I like to have it. And if you look at some of those user agreements, you don't even own it. You don't,
Yeah.
you buy it and you don't even own it. You're just renting it for an amount of time. And if they decide there's copyright issues, they can go into your machine and remove that thing that you already bought. There was a time they did that, Amazon, a couple of years ago, that there was a big hullabaloo over. There was something, I think it was a TV show or a movie, that they went into people's devices and removed it, even though they had bought it.
Mm.
You just don't
Yeah,
own them.
I don't like that. Such as I remember,
Yeah.
Jim. I remember when we were building workstations. I remember us talking about the whole Premiere thing, how they switched over to subscription model, like
Yep.
most software packages nowadays. Whereas before, you could just buy it one time and it's over with. Which I agree. I hate the I hate that where it's like subscription based, or it's not just you buy it and you
Yep.
own it. You have to keep paying, or you like really you're just renting whatever you're paying for, and then they can take it back whenever.
Yep.
So I I agree. I hate that. But I'm of the opposite mind of having like physical games and physical movies. I would prefer to have it all digitized and not have a physical CD or physical copy of things that can be digitized. Because personally, I just don't see. For me, I don't want more like physical things that I need to worry about.
Yeah.
Because then, like, if I'm moving or something, I can't just pack it all into my car and just go somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't. If I
I
had all
know.
that, just
But
more
you know what?
stuff.
You know what pleasure you're missing though? Literally yesterday, I was in the basement here looking for something, and I came across, we have a box of old CDs and video games and stuff. And my son has the original Star Wars TIE Fighter game, right? Now, if that was just a digital thing, that would have been deleted and erased and forgotten for so long. But now it's just a hidden gem that sometime we'll take it out and we'll plug it in and be, oh yeah, remember this? So there's something to nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Like I keep all like my graphics card boxes, though I did the last 2 years ago consider throwing them out, but I kept them. So like I agree. I like this nostalgia stuff, but then I always weigh whether it's worth it or not to have the physical thing
Yeah,
or to.
yeah. But so now here's the newest problem, and I can't even stand this. I used to have Netflix. That's not good enough anymore. Now
Yeah.
I have Netflix, I have Amazon, I have Disney Plus, I have CBS All Access,
Do you have
and I
Hulu?
just had no, I don't have Hulu because
You
I don't
don't
like
have Hulu.
commercials. And I just had to get um, the PBS app because all of their programming, everybody's behind a paywall now. And it's like everybody's taking $5 a month, $5 a month here, there, and everywhere.
It's going to end
And
up being more expensive than cable.
exactly. For CBS All Access, I think we know why I have CBS All Access. It's for Discovery and Picard, and that is really it. So I got to pay
Yeah.
$60 a year just to watch those two TV shows.
I feel like in the next couple of years we're gonna see something that moves back to a cable-esque program where it's just you get all of this for one price instead of all of the subscriptions, and that's going to be a pattern that just repeats for all of.
And I don't remember if you guys are too young for this, but I remember back in the day, uh, everybody was like, "Oh, these evil cable companies, they're making me pay for Nesson when I don't like sports, or I got to pay for the Hallmark Channel, and I'm not romantic." And it's like a la carte. That was the big thing. The government is going to force a la carte, where we only have to pay for the channels that we want. And now we're actually getting that, and here I am griping about it.
Exactly.
I mean, to
Exactly
be
my
honest,
point.
I think that we have Xfinity, and you can stream your TV through Xfinity.com and get on demand through them. And we have the whole cable library available there. So I think they might be the ones because they already have the rights to all of the TV shows and everything. So they might be the ones to step in, and
Yeah,
Verizon too.
Yeah,
yeah.
same with Verizon. I use Verizon a lot. Their online service for streaming and whatnot. I mean I only have two things: Spotify and Amazon. So I don't have any of the Netflix. Never have any of that stuff because I just like use Verizon when I need to or whatever. But I think it's I like it better, even though I don't use it. I think the streaming's better because it's a balancing act between convenience and watching things when you want and what you want without ads.
Yeah.
So it's that.
See, what I don't like is that Disney Plus actually has a really good interface. I really like that. And I want to watch The Mandalorian and I want to watch Star Trek Picard. What I don't care about is watching the entire library of Disney movies from the beginning of time on to now. And I wish that there could be a separation between original first run programming and archival stuff that some people like to watch over and over again, but I typically don't enjoy.
That would be nice. Sort of an a la carte for the a la carte.
Yeah, yeah.
I think streaming on the whole is unequivocally better than what it used to be. I mean, the convenience of it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really think about it, on the scale of a lifetime, you're really just renting all of your physical media anyway, because it's not yours when you die. So the access to pretty much the sum total of all human music with one Spotify subscription is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Definitely like that.
But I still don't like not owning it.
Yeah. And I mean, and if you could own it digitally and know that you owned it. For example, we bought music libraries for the studio to use in our shows. No problem. We pay for it. We own it. That's great. Now we put it up on YouTube, and the people who sold it to us are putting copyright claims saying that that's their music and they want to put ads on our stuff.
Yeah.
And now we got to track down, we have somewhere that the license that we bought, and you got to contest it. It's a pain in the butt, but if you could own it. Go ahead.
I wouldn't even be that mad about just streaming if there was some repercussion for companies of just taking it away on a moment's notice. Like the most of the time this comes up for me is video games. And there are tons of examples of video games that are just killed because there's no player base for them anymore, or the servers for them are just shut down. And so there are games that are dead and you cannot play them anymore. And that's not like an old game that was made 30 years ago and you have to track down an old system for it. Like, no, you can still play that. You just need to, maybe spend a little bit more money. There are games that were made 10 years ago that are impossible to play now because the company just decided they don't want to support it anymore.
Yeah.
And if there was at least laws where if they did that, they had to refund your purchase or give you some way of playing it, because the worst thing that can happen to a game is being unable to play it.
Yeah.
Right. And you know what? And we talk about streaming, by the way, and Chris really likes streaming. I like streaming too, but it's not really there yet. When you have really dark images or they're fading, you get a lot of artifacts in there, and you still get where like pixelates and where it glitches. It's not a perfect medium. You get a Blu-ray disc or a 4K video or something like that, and it looks really good on your big screen.
Maybe I'm just naive. Maybe I'm just naive, but I've never really been that sensitive to those video artifacts and stuff. So I just haven't experienced Blu-ray.
No, I totally get that, because I am not an audiophile, and I have a friend who is, and he is always like, "Oh, that's kind of like substandard," and I'm like, "I don't know, it sounds good to me."
Exactly.
Okay, well, we never got to your second topic, guys.
I thought this was great.
I know.
Yeah,
Conclusion?
that was a backup.
Desktops are on the out, but I still like mine.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy a desktop eventually. I need one. I just kind of want to have a permanent place to live first.
And they are just, I mean, I said it before, I say it all the time, but like the machines that you guys made for us, oh my gosh, you turn those things on and boom, they're booted up.
Yeah.
And you click on the program and poof, it's right there. It's really nice when something works like it really should, and there's not the lag time. We have an older laptop here. We booted it up once. It's like 5 or 6 years old. We thought it was broken. It just took that long to actually start booting.
I thought you were going to say we booted it up 5 or 6 years ago and it's still going.
Oh, no, I would never expect that. No.
I completely forgot about the external GPU boxes.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
That was a whole nother part of my pitch.
Oh, all right.
All
We
right.
get it.
Hey, listen, let's have you back. We are totally out of time. I always love chatting
All right.
tech with you guys. It's very interesting. So thank you for being on the show again.
Oh, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
All right. Take care, everybody. I hope that somebody is going to run the graphics for us. You have a great night. We'll see you next time.
Take care.